Today's episode of the Goldcast is sponsored by me. Are you lacking some Raymond in your life? Do you need a little bit more ray of sunshine in your world? Well, don't hesitate to call 555-5555 Raymond and get a little more sunshine, rays of sunshine in your life.
San Francisco, are you ready?
This is the Goldcast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the Goldcast. I am your host, Raymond Solis I, and with me is just me. The greatest fanalyst in the game is here to talk to you about the Carolina Panthers coming into town to play against the San Francisco 49ers. This, to me, is a matchup that's even, to me, I think this is an even tougher matchup than the Rams game. I think naturally there's always some, I think division games are always a little bit stiffer collectively, but, as far as our season's been going, this to me is the toughest opponent. This is an opponent that's 4-2, that is statistically in a better position than the Rams are doing right now. They did not have to give up first round picks to shore up some areas that are lacking. This is a team that's kind of clicking on all cylinders. Cam Newton is out of the picture. We know that Kyle Allen is there. Even if Cam was like 80 or 70%, I would still not play him because Kyle Allen's been doing great. He's been, 65% completion percentage. He has nearly 1,000 yards. He's 100 yards shy of that. He's thrown 7 touchdowns. He's thrown 0 interceptions. He's been sacked 10 times. And yeah. And he's got the best dual threat running back in the entire league. So there's a lot to feel good about if you're a Carolina fan coming into this game. Now, conversely, on the other side, we are, without a doubt, the second best rushing attack in the NFL. I think Baltimore is the first because Lamar Jackson's been running, and it's always harder to chase down quarterbacks, especially when you're dropped in coverage. And Lamar Jackson's running, a lot of his runs are very unscripted. So by the time he does decide to run, the secondary is already, downfield in their coverages. And at this point, he's just trying to beat middle linebackers and trying to get to the second level off the defensive line of his opponents. But anyways, enough about Baltimore. We'll deal with them later. So right now we have one of the top defenses going up against the number 2 defense in the NFL. We are second in the league in points allowed at 10.7. We're second in the league in yards allowed at 223 yards. We are first, the number 1 best passing defense in the NFL, yielding only 133 yards per game. And we are the 8th best rushing defense in the NFL at number 8. I think the last couple games we've yielded a couple 100-yard runners, and that's definitely dropped us in the rankings because before that we were a top 5. So, but all it takes is a couple 100-yard rushers to move your ranking. But this is still a very, very good group, especially the last 2 back-to-back games. We saw the Redskins and the Rams kind of really run uncontested in their opening drives, and Carolina's most likely going to follow suit with an even more versatile running back. So I think this time we're going to be ready for it because, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And no more fooling now. So we know what we're getting out of Carolina, and I think we're going to be ready for it. But to me, again, when I do these game previews, I often look at the matchups. Like, okay, what does the other team possess? That, and how can I compare that to what we have on our side? And to me, there's obviously the records speak for themselves, but when I look at the matchups here, in a nutshell, I believe that the Niners have the edge. And so, let's get into what those edges are, because defensively, this is still a very good group. They're middle of the road, middle of the league, 15th in points allowed at 22. They're 12th in the league in total yards allowed at 344. They're 7th in the NFL at 225 passing yards per game, so seventh best passing defense. And they're the 23rd ranked rushing defense at 119. That's the big one. You've got a top 10 going up against a bottom 10. That, to me, is one of the big differences I saw. Now, where we're comparable is we have the best pass defense, obviously complemented by our pass rush, going up against a top 10 passing defense. This is really the strength of Carolina, because they also have a very good pass rush. They've produced 27 sacks this season. We've produced 20, so they actually have bested us in this category by 7 sacks. And that's largely been, because of Mario Addison and Brian Burns. So our offensive line is going to get tested by these two individuals. And in the middle of the field, we're going to have, the ball magnet Luke Kuechly, who is, I think that he has an edge over our guys. Our best is Quan Alexander, Fred Warner leading the pack. So what Luke Kuechly does in combined tackles is what Fred Warner and Quan Alexander have done combined. So this guy is a tackle machine, and rightfully so. Although total tackles, it's a little bit more closer, but still, Luke Kuechly has the edge there in this regard. I think he definitely is the better inside linebacker than our guys, although we have I think part of it is because we have two very good inside linebackers, so the duties are not overwhelmingly eclipsed like they are with Luke Kuechly, whereas we have two solid inside linebackers. So, as far as numbers are concerned, we have the edge, but as far as overall talented inside linebacker, I got to give it to Luke Kuechly. I think it's only fair. He's a proven player. He's a multiple Pro Bowler. Despite the injury history that he has, he's been healthy this year. And they have James Bradbury over there in the secondary. He has 3 picks this year. He's been very, very good, almost shutdown caliber, more often than he's given up plays to big wide receivers. He's guarded some of the best in the game. I expect him to be covering Emmanuel Sanders in this game. I think it would be a mistake not to have him there. If he wasn't there, it's either him or George Kittle, so they've got to decide how they want to do that matchup. I think George Kittle is a mismatch, but so I expect to see him on Emmanuel Sanders more so than George Kittle. George Kittle will have a different coverage look than that. Luke Kuechly is pretty good in coverage, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the matchup that we get to see on Sunday. So to me, when we look at the quarterbacks, I think, Kyle Allen's been mistake-free. So, and Jimmy, even though Jimmy's extremely efficient at times, he still gives up the ball once a game. And that definitely needs to change. But he is a little bit more accurate. He has thrown for more yards, although he's played 2 more games. And that, I think, says a lot. He throws for more yards per attempt. He's thrown the same exact amount of touchdowns. He's only been sacked 8 times all season long. So this, again, is another edge. I think our offensive line matches up better than Carolina's offensive line. They've given up 16 sacks, double the amount of sacks that we've given up this year. So there is some mismatch there. So that I think that really, really benefits our defensive line. I think our defensive front, although while we haven't produced as many sacks, 7 less sacks in Carolina, I still think our group is better collectively, because theirs has largely been the productivity of two really dominant players. Although they've still got great contribute. Vernon Butler has 3 sacks over there, and then a bunch of guys have a pair. Christian Miller has 2. Gerald McCoy has 2.5. Don Terry Poe has 2 sacks as well, as Shaq Thompson has 2 sacks. So they've gotten contribution. Their contribution has been spread around, but the lion's share of the pass rush has really comes through Brian Burns and Mario Addison. So I think that our group collectively is better, not by much. I mean, these are still pretty comparable, but we can see that how that plays out in statistics, right? So our pass rush has complemented our secondary to the tune of best in the NFL, whereas their pass rush has complemented their secondary to the tune of seventh best in the NFL. So these are pretty comparable. The difference between first and seventh place is mere yards. Although in our case it's almost it's 90 almost a 90-yard difference here, and so that's a pretty big gap. So that's why I give the edge to the Niners, even though the both defensive fronts are pretty comparable, but as they pertain to the secondary, I think that ours has a significant edge. And so again, I see our pass rush has an edge. I see our offensive line has an edge. Christian McCaffrey, what can we say? Let's go to the offense. I mean, well, actually, let's stick to defense, because I was talking about James Bradbury, and our complement to that is Richard Sherman, who obviously is a little bit older. He's not as young as James Bradbury, although we've had really good play out of Quan Williams. Akella Witherspoon was doing great before he went down. And then our safeties have been terrific. I know they have a former player, Eric Reed, who had, some, a little bit of choice comments leading into the game. I think, he didn't say it was revenge. Although, to me, based on those comments, like, I just never forget. That's, to me, that's subliminal for I feel slighted by this team, and I kind of want to stick it to him on Sunday. And that's fine and dandy. He's played good. He has 37 tackles on the year. He's also had a sack, so he's playing good. He's not quite his 2013 Pro Bowl self, and he most likely never will be. But he's had a solid season so far. I'm not going to slight him. I think I like our safety tandem just a little bit better. I think they're a little bit younger, and they've been a little bit more, again, if one of them was charged with kind of taking the bulk of duties, then I think we'd see the statistics spread out between Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward, but they both play really solid for what their roles are. Jaquiski Tartt's been healthy and solid all year long. He doesn't have quite as many tackles as Eric Reed, but that's because we have a lot of really good tacklers this year. Everyone's technique has gotten much better, so the tackles are spread around more guys versus these Carolina Panthers, which are collectively a very good tackling team, but also at the same time, I think their scale of productivity tends to lean on several guys, whereas with our group it's a bit more spread out and even, because I think as a unit we're obviously better, and that's why the rankings are what they are. But offensively, let's go to the offensively. So I think Kyle Allen gets an edge because he protects the football, but Jimmy G's been terrific on third down. So if I got to give it up to Kyle Allen, then to me I think it's got to be in the turnover ratio. I think that's kind of an easy one. 6 picks to 0 picks. And he's played 2 less games and has thrown just as many touchdowns. So to me, Kyle Allen gets the edge here. Jimmy's had more completions. He's thrown for nearly 400 more yards. But he's also played 2 games, and our running attack is better. Has been, been second best in the NFL. Was number 1 for a while, and we were averaging 200 yards for a couple games there, but came back down to earth over the last couple games, especially with the Mud Bowl in Washington. But to me, as far as running backs are concerned, I think it's no doubt that Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL, not only with what he does on the ground, but also what he does in the air. He's caught 35 receptions for 305 yards. He's scored 2 touchdowns in the air, but on the ground, has 127 attempts. He's amassed 618 yards. He scored 7 touchdowns. So clearly, it goes through him. He's scored more touchdowns than any 2 backs we have on the team. It takes about there's three play. I'd say between Matt Breida, Tevin Coleman, and Jeff Wilson, it's taken them three combined to equate what Christian McCaffrey's done in the touchdown column. But again, we are a collective unit. As far as individual talent goes, there's no doubt Christian McCaffrey is the guy, and he's going to be getting the lion's share of touches in the air and on the ground. He's their leading receiver as well. So next to DJ Moore, who's only 2 receptions behind him. But on the ground game, to me, I think all right, well, you do have the best dual threat running back, but we also have 3 backs that can do more or less what Christian McCaffrey does. Although we don't always use them in those same roles. We have Matt Breida and Tevin Coleman that share, that have produced more than Christian McCaffrey has. Matt Breida has a better yards per attempt. He's faster. He's clocked at 23 miles per hour. Christian McCaffrey's 22 miles per hour. They've both had longs of 83 and 84 yards, 73 attempts to 411 yards. Raheem Mostert has a great yards per attempt. So I just think as a collective group, I think we get the edge as far as versatility is concerned. So as far as a one-man stop shop, I think Carolina definitely gets it with Christian McCaffrey, but as far as versatility is concerned, I think when you have 3 guys and you're getting different looks on the outside zone running game that we run, I think it's a lot harder on defenses to try to adapt to different running styles, whether it's up the middle or around the sides. We do a lot of sweeps and tosses, and we also do reverses and double fake reverses, and I think there's just a lot more nuance to our running game, and I think that's why we're the second best rushing offense. But I mean, give credit where credit's due. This is the top 9th rushing offense, so they are a top 10 group in this category. There's no doubt about it, and it starts and stops with Christian McCaffrey. So definitely, I just think this is going to be a good matchup, but I think because we have to more or less focus on one person, and whereas Carolina would have to focus on 3 people. If one's not working, that's why we have different looks, different speeds, different styles, and that, to me, that keeps the defense more honest. And that's why we've been mostly successful against a lot of the defensive fronts that we've played against. So to me, again, I got to give this edge to us. Not only is that reflected in the rankings, but I think it's also reflected in the point I just made. We have 3 horses. They have 1 amazing stallion, and we have 3 really good horses. And on the tight end side, I think there's no question that George Kittle's the man. I know that Greg Olson's still playing. He's not producing at the same clip as George Kittle is, as far as the yak and the separation, the yards per reception. I mean, there's no contest there. But as far as wide receivers are concerned, I think they definitely are getting more productivity out of DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Greg Olson too. I think those 3 guys and Christian McCaffrey, all 4 of those guys are a lot more productive than our guys. Especially when you start to break it down with the passing yards. Kendrick Bourne still sitting at 139. Marquise Goodwin's 181 with drop balls. Deebo Samuel has drop balls at a 168, and George Kittle is sitting there at 376. So nobody, with the exception of DJ Moore, no one's done as well as Kittle on Carolina's team. So I do think that the yards after catch, though, that's George Kittle's forte. So I think he obviously has a clear edge over Greg Olson. Deebo Samuel, Marquise Goodwin, I don't think they've not been as productive as DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. So our secondary is definitely going to have to step up. But I think Kyle Allen's definitely going to have his hands full against his pass rush. When he doesn't have pressure, Kyle Allen's very good, just like most quarterbacks in the NFL. But when he's pressured, Kyle Allen, he does struggle. He struggles quite a bit. And I think that's going to be the difference in this game, and it's kind of been the difference a lot. For almost every game we've been in. That's been the big staple. And look, listen, and check this out. Here's just for further perspective on this. So Kyle Allen, when he's not under pressure, he has a 73% completion percentage. He throws for 8.5 yards per attempt, and his passing grade is nearly 78 points. When he's under pressure, 43% completion percentage, 4.5 yards per attempt, 33.5 grade points. So everything gets cut in half. And that's against pressure groups that are not us. So just imagine what it's going to be like on Sunday. I just think he's going to have his hands full. And he gets the ball out quick, but can you get it out faster than we can apply pressure and or get the sack? I think that's going to be the big difference in this game. I do expect them to score points. I don't expect this to be a game similar to Washington. I thought that was going to be like 25-6 or 21-6, something like that. I think this one's going to be a little bit closer, just because the offenses and defenses are a bit more comparable than what we've seen in other opponents. So I think that's going to translate into points. I expect at least anywhere between, between 14 and 17 points. I don't know why I keep always coming back to that point total. Maybe it's because teams have been, that's all they've reached at this point, with the exception of Pittsburgh. So to me, I think this is kind of I don't think we're going to get blown out. I think this is kind of more like, I'd say 24-17, 21-17. This one's going to be a close one. That's my feeling there, because Carolina's going to come to play, no doubt about it. But I think the pass rush is going to really make the difference here, and I think that our offensive line matches up well with this defensive line, and I think that their offensive line is, I think, going to be a little challenge dealing with 4 excellent pass rushes versus just two or less, which is what they've dealt with so far through their schedule. At least when I look at their schedule, I haven't breaking down every single one of those games, but you're talking about LA that pretty much just has Aaron Donald. You have Tampa Bay that has 1 or 2 guys. Arizona doesn't really have much. Houston, I haven't watched Houston. Jacksonville's not been Saxonville this season, so they've not been the same pass rush group that they've been in the past. They've already played Tampa Bay twice this year too, and they lost the first time and won the second time. And again, that's division, so a little bit different there. I think there's always a little bit more mustard when the two teams match up. But that's what I think. So I think this is going to be 24-17, 24-21, something along those lines. Definitely let me know what you guys think. What do you think the final score is going to be? I think our averages of points scored per game, we're 11th best scoring offense in the NFL. I mean, obviously scoring 9 points last week is definitely going to drop you in the rankings, but I don't know if we hit that season total this year, unless the game gets really out of hand late in the second half. And, our staff makes a bunch of adjustments to really kind of take control of the game, then, this is something that could easily end up like 31-21 or something like that, or 35-24, something like that. But I do expect a lot more scoring. This is not a mud bowl this time. This is going to be spring, fall weather. It's going to be good. There's going to be breeze. There's going to be air. We finally got Kyle Nelson back. Joe Staley's trying to make a comeback. I don't think he'll make it quite in time. I think tomorrow's practice report will tell us a little bit more about that, but my gut feeling is they're probably not going to start him, and our backups have been playing really good, so there's not an urgent need to rush his return to the lineup. I think you can still rest your laurels on Brunskill and Skule because they've been terrific. They've done such an excellent job, and to me that gives a lot of reassurance to the future. If they're able to play that well, step right in and just kind of keep us running at the same clip. So that's definitely a good thing. And the kicking game is going to be a lot better now with Kyle Nelson off of his penalty or suspension. So that's a good one too. And then the big one is Emmanuel Sanders. I'm really curious to see what kind of plays Kyle Shanahan is going to draw up. I think this gives you a deep threat. Right now, the deep threat has been Marquise Goodwin, but now you have 2 guys that can do that. So I think that Emmanuel Sanders is clearly more reliable in that category, so I expect him to get those looks this week, even though he had a really short turnaround coming to the team. But he came to the team, that they made the move when they made the move with the expectation of him playing this Sunday. So I do expect that to translate into some deep ball looks. And so don't be surprised to see that, and we'll see if he's able to get separation from James Bradbury. Either way, I think it's kind of a pick your poison, because if you stack the box to slow down our running game, you're going to open up man coverage downfield. And to me, Emmanuel Sanders and George Kittle are terrific in man coverage. They are great in separation, and they're both great at yards after the catch. So you have two guys that can do this now. It's no longer just Kittle. This gives us this is going to be a much more dynamic offense going forward. And if conversely, if you drop extra guys and you're going to rely on the pass rush, then I think we can handle that with Dwelly taking fullback position and taking blocking, or you keep Kittle in there. You have him chip somebody before he goes over the middle, or you have running backs. You have one of our running backs doing coverage to help with pass protection. I think it's kind of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, and either way, if you drop 6, then and we run the ball, then good luck, good luck. So they've really got to think about what kind of defensive looks they're going to give us and what formations they're going to choose, because there's give and take no matter how you slice it against our offense. And naturally, I think that goes for Carolina too, on our end too. But at the same time, we've been doing the same thing every week in and week out, and we've gotten the same results. So there's obviously a little bit more consistency on our end as far as the pass rush and the secondary are concerned. So again, I see an edge. So I think we win this game. Rudy does not think so. He thinks that we come down to earth and we lose this game and drop to 6-1. I think we stay course and we rise to 7-0. But what say you? So you can like us on Facebook.com/TheGoldCast, and you can also follow us on Twitter at @the_Goldcast, and you can also subscribe to us via iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher, all under the same moniker of The Goldcast. Like, subscribe, and comment, because we certainly want to hear from you leading into this Sunday. I know one of our cousin Brian, who we've mentioned from time to time on the show, he'll be at the game on Sunday, so curious to see what that's going to be like, seeing it all live and in person. And of course, you can find me on Twitter at Ray Solis and on Instagram at RaySolis1. So concludes another episode of The Goldcast. I'm your host, Raymond Solis the First, baby, and we'll see you next time after the game, the conclusion of the game, to talk about the results. So we'll see you next time. Same Goldcast time, same Goldcast channel.
This is The Goldcast.